Look at that, we're underway. So just by way of introductions, I'm Craig Nielsen, with the hat on as the He Waka Haumaru steering group member and Kairahi project lead for Enabling Good Lives Taranaki, who I guess now custodians of this final report. I'm joined by Fran Jones, the project manager of this body of work, so she's sitting there, and also physically in the room here we've got Donna Harridge, who is our administrator for Enabling Good Lives Taranaki, and David Prentice, as well as online we've got Daniel and Heath, who were part of the Enabling Good Lives Taranaki project team in the community engagement space. And then we've got other steering group members, Nick Armstrong, Kevin, Dion, and Daniel also sitting on board. Housekeeping wise, not sure if anyone needs or requires NZSL, but we do have Scott and Fran joining us from Auckland and Wellington, so they'll pop in and out. But if you need them, we've got them spotlighted so you can see them. Hopefully that works. If you've got any questions, pop them in the chat, and you'll maybe need to start a new chat, and it'll go through the co-host Fran Jones for that, so that she can see and respond to you. Big deep breath. Yeah, that's a good idea. Can we just do a little check? Can everyone hear? Even if it's just a show of hands, if you can hear us, please. Or anyone's got any problems, chuck it in the chat. So we'll call that good. Perfect. So after all that, kia ora and welcome. We're pleased to be here and have the opportunity to share this back with you. And thank you for your time tonight. We had hoped to do a bit of a roadshow with this, but fair to say, with a bit of the budgetary constraints and the time of year, I wanted to go to the horse racing today, but that didn't happen. So the steering group felt compelled at the absolute minimum to share this back with the community that fed into it as a priority group and invested partners in that. So here we are online on the magical Zoom. It was also decided by the steering group, whether it be rightly or wrongly, to share the entire reporting stream, so the final report along with the 5 reports that fed into it, so that you could see the context that shaped the process. Also, please be with us. This whole Zoom thing has been very 2020, and we've spent the whole day trying to get it right. So hopefully we'll do our absolute best. So continuing on. Firstly, a massive and sincere thank you to all who contributed your voices, stories, and expertise along the way. This mahi belongs to you. Everything you hear tonight is grounded in Taranaki, in our whakapapa and lived experience. This report has put into writing many of the things people have said over many years, and some of it's very sobering. The whakatoki, so I'll move on to that a little bit here. I'll get my controls working. I've done karakia already. I've got feedback and help in the room because they all know that I can't stay on the railway tracks without a little bit of help. So I will just read the whakatoki that's in front of you there. Mihe aka rata ki ka tipu tahi, ka pua wai tahi kia tū kaha, ina hihi o tama nui te rā. Like the rata vines constantly growing and flourishing together, stand strong in the warmth of sun. And it is sunny in Taranaki, of course, we know that. So today is about sharing back what we heard, why it matters, and where the pathway is leading. We expect to take about half an hour for the presentation, then on to question and answers after that. So tonight is very significant, but it's also very simple. We're here to share back what we heard and bring it back to you and outline a pathway ahead. If you do have questions, either note them down yourselves or pop them in the chat to Fran Jones, and then she can record them down and we'll address them at the end if that's all good. If you've got any reason to panic partway through or your ship's about to crash, maybe, let us know. Otherwise, we'll just forge ahead. So whakapapa, this work is rooted in place and people. Golly, Taranaki identity, kaupapa Māori values, and the voices of whānau, community, and providers. Our starting point is respect for lived experience, tikanga, and for the foundations of community our communities stand on. Our mandate, the steering group commissioned this feasibility study in partnership with EGL Taranaki. More than 250 voices contributed across Māori engagement, community surveys, hui, and interviews. Mixed methods just means we didn't rely on one source. We looked at the survey numbers, we listened to people, and we brought the numbers and insights together to get the full picture. Everything here has been validated through co-design and steering group review. We're here to return this mahi to the community that it came from. I don't think I'll get emotional, but I might, so I'll just watch that. So what we're here to do, today's purpose is simple. Share what we learned and why it matters, walk you through the pathway, and hear your reflections. This is a chance to reconnect and make sure the pathway reflects what matters to Taranaki. Once we've completed the presentation, we will answer any questions. Feel free to send those through, as I've said, through to Fran. Alternatively, raise your hand if you need to do this verbally during the Q&A time. And Scott and Fran will still be on board for that session. So why you're here? You're here tonight. We have our community with us, tangata whaikaha, which means disabled persons, whānau providers, and community organisations. Many of you shared your stories with us. Today is about returning those insights to you. You're here because your contribution made this possible. You're also here because your role matters in the next stage, whether it is a provider, whānau member, disabled person, funder, or community leader. Oh, that's a trick when that happens. You each hold part of the system, and the future system will only work if it's shaped collectively. What we're asking of you, 3 things. Listen with openness. Reflect on where this connects to your work, whānau, or community. Join the waka. The next phase relies on collaboration and partnership. How the evidence was gathered. A quick look at how the insights were collected. Māori-led engagement grounded in kaupapa Māori values and ways of working. Community surveys, easy read resources, interviews, and focus groups. Provider insights and service mapping, a review of successful models across Aotearoa. Steering group and EGL Taranaki co-design. This breadth is what gives the evidence strength. This is why the findings are strong. We heard the same patterns across different voices in different ways. The case for change. We heard tough stories. Young people leaving school with nowhere to go. Adults waiting alone for support. Families carrying responsibilities that were meant to last a weekend, not decades. This can be confronting, so I want to acknowledge that. This is not about blame. The issue is structural, not individual. Some of what we've heard was really tough, people doing it hard, often on their own. So I want to acknowledge that before we get into the detail. None of this is abstract. It is people's lives. What we heard, across voices, the themes were consistent. People want connection, visibility, and places to belong. The lack of pathway leaves people isolated. Key insights. Only a third of disabled respondents consistently get the support they need. 86% of whānau said simply having clear options would make life easier. Some people in their 20s and 30s are living in aged care homes or campgrounds. Families described years, sometimes decades, of filling gaps themselves. These are not isolated experiences. They paint a regional picture. In front of you, there's a quote. For the first 5 years after diagnosis, we didn't have aspirations. We just lived. This quote captures the emotional reality. This is why change matters. Fragmentation. The system is fragmented. Supports exist, but they're disconnected. People fall through the gaps. Families do the coordinating. opportunities are lost. This isn't a lack of effort, it's a lack of structure. Everyone is doing their best, but the system isn't set up to support that joined up work. Unmet demand. There is more demand than the current system can meet. Only 1 in 3 disabled people consistently get the support they need. 76% of whānau can't find the right support workers. Only 4 respite beds are reliably available across the entire region. These are not just statistics, these are real families going without breaks for years. No coordination, no pathway. This sums it up. Taranaki has services, although not enough of them, but no system to connect what's there. People are navigating alone. Belonging. When we asked what mattered the most, the theme that came across every voice was belonging. People talked about homes, transport, employment, social opportunities, and education. Those are the visible things that are missing. But underneath that, what people are really asking for is connection, inclusion, and safe places to grow, learn, and participate. It all comes back to belonging. Māori engagement. From our Māori engagement, we heard really clearly that values matter. Whanaungatanga. That's relationships first, taking time to connect properly. Manaakitanga. Care, respect, looking after each other. And doing things in ways that honour tikanga, the right way for the people to be involved. These insights aren't just separate. They shape the whole experience for tangata whaikaha Māori, and actually they strengthen the whole system for everyone. So there's a quote on the screen. Being whaikaha Māori, you are doubly disabled by a system that doesn't allow you to be Māori first and foremost. So one thing we heard really strongly was that idea of being doubly disabled. For tangata whaikaha Māori, the system often doesn't make space for them to be Māori first, to bring their culture, their reo, their whānau, and their ways of doing things. So they're facing barriers because of disability and barriers because the system isn't built with Māori in mind. That's what people meant when they said they're doubly disabled. And that's why Māori values need to be right at the centre. Provider insights. Providers are committed but stretched. Fragmentation makes good practice difficult. Everyone wants to collaborate, but the system pulls people into silos. Providers are doing their best. Everyone's stretched. People want to work together. The system just makes it harder than it needs to be. The quote, the whole sector seems to be scared of partnership. We all run in silos. This is the environment we need to shift towards aligned, supported collaboration. Connectors, or kaitohono, were identified as essential to both disabled people and whānau. This is not just about navigation, it's relational. It requires trust, lived experience, and knowledge. This is one of the clearest signals we heard. People don't just need information, they need someone alongside them. Belonging. All voices pointed towards the same conclusion. Relational trust is what makes inclusion work. This is the backbone of the pathway forward. The pathway forward is a great indicator for me to have a sip of water. There you go. I do. Everyone knows or thinks I love the sound of my own voice, but here I am just being the face of the nation. So the pathway forward, what follows is a phase-by-phase approach grounded in evidence, aligned with kaupapa Māori values, and centered on lived experience. A phased transformation, the pathway is deliberate, staged, and designed for sustainability. Transformation requires foundations, testing, and then scaling. We've pulled the evidence together into a pathway that makes sense for Taranaki. It's not a perfect blueprint, it's a starting point. We build the foundations, try some things, learn what works, and grow from there. Mobilize. Mobilization is about building those foundations, governance, roles, shared objectives, and a costed activation blueprint. The activation blueprint is the bridge between feasibility and delivery. It's developed in the next phase and pulls together the financial modelling, the kaupapa Māori workstream, the governance decisions and operational design. It gives us a clear costed 18-month plan for activation and sets the program up to start pilot testing. This is explained more on pages 16 to 18 of the feasibility study report. Because of course you've all read that. There's like 240 pages. Just read the first 24, 26. Activate. Activation tests what works. Connectors, housing, respite, transport, belonging, pilots. We learn through doing and refine together. We try things in an iterative way, not huge, not expensive, just practical in a way that makes sense to the people participating. Integrate. Integration scales what works. This is where Taranaki builds an enduring, connected regional ecosystem. Shared governance, rated investment, and long-term infrastructure come into place. This is the point that stops it being a project and becomes the way Taranaki does things. So these are 3 phases: mobilize, activate, and integrate. A cycle that builds momentum and stability over time. Building a connected ecosystem, this is the end goal, a system where supports connect, pathways exist, and people belong. System architecture. For change to last, we need shared governance, aligned leadership, rated investment, clear evaluation, and coordinated pathways. If we want the change to stick, we've got to get the basics right underneath it. Clear roles, good leadership, joined up funding, and in a way, check if things are actually working. It doesn't have to be complicated, it just has to be clear. If we don't sort this part, everything else risks slipping back. This is the scaffolding that holds the change in place. Governance. Our proposed model centres coordinated regional leadership, clear roles, and alignment with Te Tiriti and Enabling Good Lives principles. The right voices at the table, disabled people and whānau. We're talking about clear roles, joined up leadership, and making sure disabled people and whānau are part of the decisions. Braided investment. We need a sustainable model that weaves government investment, local philanthropy, community partnerships, and provider contributions. We need a sustainable model that brings together diverse streams because one funding stream won't cut it. Evaluation. Evaluation will track what matters to disabled people and whānau, shared outcomes, learning loops, transparency, and community-led definitions of success. Immediate actions. This is where we begin. Confirm governance, prepare pilots, develop the implementation plan, and set early evaluation. Here's what we can do straight away. Sort out the leadership and governance, set up some pilots, and we get our plan lined up so we're ready to move step by step. Timeline. Here's a high-level illustration of how the phases will roll out. This will be refined through strategic planning in the mobilisation phase. Cute picture. A Taranaki we all belong to is the vision at the heart of the work, a region where everyone has places to belong. So there's a quote on the screen now. I've experienced how powerful it is when disabled people are brought together, celebrated, and given space to shine. That's what a good life feels like, being able to participate fully, have independence and choice, and be seen for our strengths, not just our disability. We leave space here to honour the voices of young people. Being able to participate fully, have independence and choice, and be seen for our strengths. This is what a good life looks like. I feel like I might have repeated myself just then. The next part, the invitation, is really simple. Join the Waka. This is a long-term work. It needs all of us. Stay engaged. And before we close, we want to open the floor. You couldn't call it anecdotal information, but it's been people's experiences for a number of years. And that's what makes it sobering, is you now have it as a piece of paper to then share back to people and go, well, actually, this is the problem. We can choose to do nothing about it, or actually we find a motivated community that is willing and able to do something about it. And I guess that's what makes it, can I use my word? Um, Daunter-sighting, try and sign language that one, to walk off into the future with some evidence and recognizing that this is the beginning of a thin edge of the wedge, and that there's been frustration for a long period of time for parents and people living in the sector that why can't this happen today or tomorrow? Why didn't it happen 40 years ago? So it's a big body of work, but we've got our gumboots on, we'll pull them up and try and stop the water getting in. Any further comments from the floor? No more raised hands. Um, so if that's it from the floor, I will go to the last slide, but really just a wholehearted thank you, ngā mihi to the researchers, including our Enabling Good Lives team that went forth to the breach to a new territory. Renee for leading her bit, Kitty for the cultural aspect, and it's tied together an amazing document that hopefully forms a foundation for good stuff to the future. So thank you to everyone that's involved. If anyone wants to know more, please email taranakiglp@gmail.com, or reach out through Enabling Good Life Taranaki, which will say thank you very much for your involvement in, literally this part of the journey. So gumboots on, keep the water out, and tromp on up the hill.